Okay, so there's about 20, 25 slides, so I'm going to move fairly quickly through some of them. The reason I brought this particular slide up is that this was when we were at our peak as a kind of, or getting to our peak actually, as a kind of activist group. And we would meet at the Muslim World League. This is where this is in London. This is a larger meeting than normal. There may have just been 4 or 5 people or 6 or 7 people. This was particularly bigger. And it was a monthly forum where we would have a speaker and a discussion. And notice we're in circular format, intentional, just so there's more of a sense of being together, and I guess it feels less hierarchical as well. And then we would also have feedback on past events and where we're up to and what we're thinking about. So this was a kind of regular monthly forum that we did for many years in London. And in between those, as I mentioned earlier, that every few months we would have amongst the core group those kind of review facilitated dreaming days as well. Same meeting, me and my contact lens days. This is a stunt that we did on Brick Lane in 2005. I'm on the right. And we wanted to highlight sea level rise in Bangladesh because of climate change. And so we did this stunt. We'd had no idea how it would, you know, what sort of response we'd get. But we're highlighting, I think the statistic was that with a kind of almost 1 meter rise in sea level, 20% of Bangladesh would be under the waves, which is a staggering, you know, kind of fact. And so that's why the snorkel and flippers, and Brick Lane being an area where there's a high percentage of Bangladeshi people, was to highlight that. And the response was that it got into the Guardian newspaper. And in the print version, it had the photo. I got interviewed by John Vidal, who's the environmental editor, certainly at that time, for the Guardian. So and they got in a few local papers as well. This is us at a climate change march. We used to be called the London Islamic Network for the Environment. So environment was in our name, and I won't go into the details, but you can understand why we changed at least the environment bit. Also, I suppose, yeah, I can say that we wanted to kind of explain more. When we say Islam, it can conjure up all sorts of things, and then a kind of not then listening to what a group is about. So wisdom in nature is kind of more descriptive, and the nature is both the inner nature, the fitra of ourselves, but also and wisdom in that, but also the wisdom in the wider and the non-human natural world as well. We did organized an Islamic community food project with Spitalfield City Farm. It got so far, a bit of a lull in energy, and it kind of phased off. But the reason I'm bringing this into this presentation is because it weaved the land-based stuff with the social organizing, and we would come to Spitalfield City Farm and do the social stuff, the group stuff, the co-organizing, and what are we going to do? What's the skills, the gifts that we bring, and co-create. So that was the dream. You might recognize Jumana, who was at the story, gave the story, presented a story at the last event. So she was involved with this. Some photos, eating together as well. So it was a whole day. We had a newsletter that we got 3 editions out called Line Leaf. This was the first one, and that front article also initially got published actually in Peace News, which is a interesting magazine run by really dedicated activists, some of whom we know. This is at an event that was called the Green Islam Culture Day in London. and so we wove art, music, and a bit of eco stuff. There's Shemes me and Wasi, who was involved quite a bit with the group. There's Wasi taking center stage there. There was also Elizabeth isn't in any of these photos, but she ran a forum theatre workshop at this event. Shemesa, this is 6 billion ways, and there was a illustrating the kind of world's population roughly at the time. and so the idea of bringing power back, the 6 billion ways rather than a monoculture. And so that Shemesa the store, some might recognize Fuad, who was at the last event. We deliver workshops and trainings. We were asked by the Aziz Foundation to deliver a leadership training that we renamed the Inclusive Leadership Retreat that we ran with them at, after being asked by them. This is at Gilwell Park, which is the National Centre for Scouts, just on the outskirts of London. And the Shemes are here with a group of academics. Well, or they were studying, let's say they were studying, I think, postgrad at a university, but some were activists, not all of them were studying. And we wove together the group stuff with nature-based stuff, really, and just brought in a lot of what we're familiar with in a way that they discovered for themselves what could work for them in their own context. This is another workshop, a permaculture. Actually, it's a permaculture Islam and Sufism workshop. Yeah, that we ran in London, an introductory days training. And so this, a subgroup showing a design, a kind of simple permaculture design they did as part of that. This is an event in Glasgow. We were asked to deliver actually a sequence of events. It was all fun. We stayed there for a few days, never visited Glasgow. Shemesa really liked Scotland. She can tell you more about that. And so there's an organization there, I've forgotten their name, but they wanted us to deliver a number of workshops. This is one, and Shemesa ran this exercise, which involves wearing blindfolds and going out into the woods. We also ran, not this photo, but the previous photo, we also ran a permaculture and Islam introductory days training there as well. Some of you may be familiar with Willowbrook Farm, and this was a very kind of much earlier days. And we organized an outing there where 1,000 trees got planted. Fast for the Planet is a concept that we came out with discussions with other people as well. And this is at St. Ethelburga's Centre for Reconciliation and Peace, who we partnered with to do a Fast for the Planet event. We did 2 or 3 where the idea of fasting, of moving away from something, food and drink, that people were able to fast in whatever way they wanted, but most of them fasted from at least food. And the people of a formal faith and no faith, but the moving away from them, moving towards the fasting, moving towards the inner, the spiritual. And that's where the 5-strand activism developed, partly out of this, as well as a lot of other experience and readings that we'd done. But this helped to bring it all together. And this is Tariq Al-Dawani, who was giving a workshop there on Islamic banking, Islamic finance. At the same event, this is a Fast for the Planet storytelling event. That's Peter Challen here, who's with the Christian Council for Monetary Justice, lovely guy, and he was giving a storytelling workshop. This is Nicole, who actually was one of the people I did my introductory permaculture weekends with. Nicole's also a GP, so she did a little permaculture intro there.
And Naveen's in here, isn't she?
Yes.
Joey might recognize Naveen.
Yeah. Who knows who's going to pop up in some of these photos?
Yeah, Naveen helped with this event.
Yeah, Naveen was helping with this. This is Derek Wall. He gave us sort of, you could say, a main talk at the Fast for the Planet, and he's a really lovely guy who admires us. We admire him. He got elected as the Green Party have been through phases where he was with the Green Party. He's not now, but he was for a very long time, a kind of socialist Green. And they've been through phases where they've had a clear leader, but prefer to have no fixed leader. They would have male and female spokesperson. And he got elected on an occasion as their sort of spokesperson. And in his leadership speech, he said that there are two things that year that have really inspired him. And one was the Corner House, which is a kind of not a magazine, but they produce literature.
It's like a think tank.
Yeah, a think tank. That's the word. Thanks, Jumessa. And the other thing that inspired him that year was us. So that was really kind of him. And lovely guy. He collaborates. He's very egoless. He's into Zen, and always great to be with. This is a workshop that we delivered at the London Permaculture Festival. Permaculture, and the name of the workshop was something like Permaculture and Diverse Communities. So we were weaving together permaculture with process work. You know, so we're weaving together the natural, the non-human natural world and the principles that are kind of identified with that, with the commonality of that within the human and social and group stuff. And this Jumessa with a bit of percussion.
I think we don't have a picture, but Nizam also did a Islam and some, what is it, Sufi and permaculture thing at London Permaculture Festival. That was
about 100 people turned
attended.
up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to do a go round. I'd planned to, and then like 100 people were there. It's like a 1 hour workshop. No, I don't think we can go and introduce it. I don't think everyone can introduce themselves. So we did introductions in pairs. This is Jumessa speaking at an event at the South Bank in London. It was a mixture of different events. I think Jumessa may have spoken at 3 of them in that day, around faith and ecology. This is an event more recently, I think last year. Any resemblance of anyone here to Valentina is not coincidental. Valentina is there, this is where we invited Fazlan Khalid, who's with IFES, to give a talk. He had just written a book on Islam and climate change that had come out. So this is in Brighton. So this is good. There's some friends of ours here as well. Fazlan speaking. Small group stuff as well. So we wanted to make sure people interacted. So we did some small group stuff there. Okay, that's the end of the presentation. So